The Cincinnati Bengals wrapped up their preseason. They finished 0-3. We don't care about that, but we will look for the takeaways from the Bengals preseason finale against the Indianapolis Colts. Let's go.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. I'm your host, Jake Liscow. He's your host, James Rapien. The Cincinnati Bengals have wrapped up their preseason, and we will wrap it up with you here on the Locked On Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. Welcome back to the everydayers. Welcome back to those of you who make us your first listen. Appreciate all of you regulars out there. And if you're new to the show, you can subscribe and join those clubs. And today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel, where right now through September 22nd, you can get 3 weeks of free NFL Sunday ticket with a $5 bet. 3 weeks of free Sunday ticket to start the season from YouTube and YouTube TV. Check it out at FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And James, who helped himself the most tonight? Let's start there. Big existential question for you to lead the show off. Who in your mind helped themselves the most in this preseason game?
Well, let's start with a guy, your guy.
My guy.
Did you notice Matt Lee?
In good ways.
Yeah, that's right. In good ways. It wasn't 62's on his back or 62 is struggling or this. And I think he had secured his roster spot anyway. But just more reps, more experience, more reps against a starting NFL unit. Valuable. And so Matt Lee, he was one of those guys that you knew he would play. You knew this would be another opportunity for him to gain experience, and mission accomplished. I think it's huge to have a backup center like him in playing at the level that he is already is pretty darn exciting. I think he has the right approach, right mentality, and it's shown really throughout training camp in the preseason.
And had a really nice block on a Travion Williams screenplay, the most explosive play the Bengals probably had against the Colts starters. And it was tough sledding for that offense early. Not because Matt Lee was a problem on the topic of Matt Lee, but the Colts defensive line is good. Latu was a problem. DeForest Buckner was a problem. Grover Stewart was a problem. These guys are really good players. And against a backup offensive line for the Bengals, featuring a left side of Cody Ford at left tackle and Trey Hill at left guard, where the Bengals shifted the guys around the center, Matt Lee, Gilliam playing right guard, and Jackson Kirkland this week at right tackle. The left side had its issues with the starters, but especially in the pass game, pleased with Matt Lee. Looked good on that screenplay. There is probably mixed results in the run game for Lee. The run game in general early on was really rough for the Bengals. When it got to the Colts rotational players and reserves, it got a little bit better for Travion Williams and that Bengals offensive line. But against the starters, wasn't much there. Matt Lee, on at least one play, was on the ground. But outside of that, I thought he had a pretty nice block on another run play. Yeah. And that's just not the strength of his game right now as a rookie whose calling card in college was pass blocking as well. We've talked about that fit for the offense, but very clear today as he left the game and Trey Hill switched over to center, changed positions late in the game, that Matt Lee will be the backup center for the Bengals entering the season.
Yeah, huge. Mission accomplished, right? That's one of the goals I would have said probably is can you get Matt Lee to a point where you feel comfortable with him as your backup center? And coming into camp, that was one mission accomplished. Another one that I thought a lot of people thought was going to be a battle, and a real battle, would be Jordan Battle versus Von Bell. It wasn't a battle, but it was nice to see Jordan make the play that he did. And I get it's Anthony Richardson, and Anthony Richardson isn't necessarily the best at reading defenses at this stage of his career. He's not the most accurate. I get it. I also don't care. A 14-yard pick six is a 14-yard pick six, and that's what he had against the Colts starters. That's a big play for Jordan Battle. And I chatted with him briefly after. He said, that's just a little something. But it's good for him to to get that, to build up a little bit more confidence. Not that he didn't have confidence, but build up some confidence going into the regular season.
Yeah, that was not a battle throughout training camp. You're right. Thought that there might be a chance, but very quickly, very early on, it became very apparent to all observers. And I think you hinted at this quite early in the process that Von Bell was by far the leader. And then when Von was present on the field, we've heard the way veterans and Lou Anarumo talked about Von's presence and the impact on communication. And it became apparent that that wasn't going to be a battle at all. But that being said, a very good play for Jordan Battle to collect that pick six. It was a miscommunication between the quarterback and I believe his tight end on that play. The tight end breaks out when he kind of initially sat down a little bit and then started drifting away from where Jordan Battle was breaking on the pass. I would imagine I don't have to imagine. They definitely had a conversation on the sideline about it. Anthony Richardson, a few times in this game, was not on the same page as his receivers, and it was obvious on the broadcast that they were discussing those plays afterwards. His accuracy at times was a little bit erratic after that first drive, which was very good for the Colts against the Bengals reserves. But Jordan Battle in the right place in good position, even if the tight end doesn't drift away, and that is a completed pass, Jordan Battle is there for the tackle or a chance at a big hit to break up the pass. So right place, right time, and good awareness to catch the ball when it landed in his lap and get it back in to the end zone there. And Battle was generally, I thought, pretty good tonight. Showed up on special teams as well. I believe he was on some of those special teams units, which will be part of his playing time this year. He will, of course, be one of the first safeties off the bench if needed at any point this season, probably the first safety off the bench if a true safety substitution is needed, but making plays on or getting reps, I should say, on special teams as well, because that will be a big part of his role this year. An overall positive night for Jordan Battle, showing that the promise is still there for the young safety.
Yeah. Yep. You want him to respond the right way after, I'm sure, going through it a little bit. It's a lot like Dax. Like, I've praised Dax, who didn't play tonight, stock up. DJ Turner didn't play tonight, stock up. Joseph Osai, you don't play him. It's exactly what you should do with the Myles Murphy news. 4 to 6 weeks, according to Jeremy Fowler, and we'll see. But still avoided the serious, scary stuff. But it's one thing to bring Geno Stone in if you're Jordan Battle. It's another to also bring back Von Bell, and you're like, wait, well, where do I fit in? And I'm sure he had some of that and kept working. And they're going to need him at some point. And so we'll see. That's just part of the NFL, right? Is they're going to need him. So I'm glad he responded the right way and made a big play tonight.
One question I have after this game, James, is where was Germaine Burton? Why didn't he play a ton and get way more targets than he got? Part of it was the offense wasn't able to function at a high level. And I'm also very curious about this tight end room at this point and what the status will be for Tanner McLaughlin, a 6th-round pick who we had some hopes for as a receiving tight end. We'll get to those topics and discuss some skill players coming up next.
This show is brought to you by BetterHelp. When your schedule is packed with kids' activities, big work projects, and so much more, it's easy to let those priorities slip. Believe me, this is busy season now, and as excited as I am for the regular season to start, priorities, well, sometimes they take a back burner to work, to all the things that go on in our lives. And even when you know what makes you happy, sometimes it's hard to make time for it. And that's where therapy can help, because a non-negotiable like therapy, it's more important than ever when you have a busy schedule. And that's why if you're thinking about starting therapy, you can give BetterHelp a try. Why? Because it's convenient. It's entirely online. It's going to fit the busiest of schedules. It's flexible, and you can do it anywhere because it's online. So whether you travel for work, whether you're covering the NFL, or whether you're a stay-at-home mom juggling the schedule from 4 different kids, BetterHelp can help you. And all you have to do to get started is fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist. You can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn.
James, I honestly thought we would see more of Germaine Burton tonight. He made a very flashy play when, once again in the fourth quarter against reserves in Paycor Stadium, Burton hauled in a vertical ball for a touchdown. It was the last touchdown the Bengals scored on offense, Germaine Burton, in that first preseason game, to the last touchdown the Bengals will score in the preseason on offense, Jermaine Burton in preseason game number 3. But despite that, he only got 28 snaps. And I believe the offense had 43 total snaps, if I am remembering correctly, who didn't leave the game. Trey Hill and Nate Gilliam playing the entire game. And Jermaine Burton was often off the field early. Not that there were a ton of opportunities for the Bengals to push the ball downfield, and he did have another opportunity at a deep ball after he was targeted and caught a little screen pass that didn't go for many yards. But what's the feeling on Jermaine Burton right now? Is he active on game day? He wasn't out there returning kicks tonight. Does he have a role for this team in the immediate future, or is this a player that's going to take some time to cook?
If you're not willing to play him on offense as that deep ball specialist, then the answer is probably no. And did you see? So you were watching the broadcast, right?
Yep.
All right. Did they talk about this meeting stuff? Did you see that? Because our listeners are going to ask about it. So what did you hear on the broadcast? Because I didn't hear the broadcast part. I have some insight on this, but I'm just curious.
I did not hear exactly what was said on the broadcast. I occasionally experience what is known as broadcaster deafness, where the yapping sometimes just goes in one brain, out the other. You know what I mean? Like I just don't retain it.
Well, apparently they referred to him sleeping in meetings.
It was unclear whether they were referring, I guess, to something that happened in college or something that happened with the team in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I would assume they're talking about here, right? I would assume that. Now, maybe not. Maybe it's wrong. Maybe I'm dead wrong. So we'll just start there. 2, I would bet, and again, no one told me that. I would have already talked about it, right? So I don't think it was in an offensive meeting if that happened. Does that make sense? So what would it be in?
Yep.
Special teams meeting. That's all. So just to be clear, I don't think he fell asleep while Zach Taylor or Troy Walters or Dan Pitcher was talking. If that happened, I still don't know if it happened, but I saw the reaction to it. Didn't listen to the broadcast. So anyways, get that out of the way because clearly it's working. He's making plays on offense. And so that's the path. I think it's up to this coaching staff. It's up to Jermaine to mature, regardless of the meeting thing. Needs to mature, clearly. I've referenced that a couple of times. I think that's very clear. At the same time, clearly he has a ton of talent. And so can he mature enough and earn the trust enough to do what he did tonight, where he has 2 21-yard catches, is clearly their most explosive player of the preseason, has 2 of their 3 offensive touchdowns in the preseason, led them or had their longest catch in each of the 3 preseason games. Like however you want to look at it, and even if it is against backups, I don't care. He still has a skill set that translates, right? And so getting that on the field at some point this year, that has to be a goal. And because I think he can help you. And so if you're Jermaine, keep maturing, grind, work, and then the Bengals keep working with him because he's clearly got the talent. I mean, that the catch tonight was a contested catch, and he just tracks the ball, is comfortable in those situations, and is able to make the play even with a cornerback draped on him.
And that's the thing that's easy to fantasize about when you consider the way Joe Burrow distributes the football and his affinity for the back shoulder throw. It looks like something that Jermaine Burton could excel at, and in that two-way threat on the vertical route, the ability to control his body and make a catch in a contested situation. Because the thing that's been most impressive with Jermaine Burton has been the ball tracking and his reliability in catching the football and attacking the football at the catch point. It doesn't always look like T. Higgins level elegant. T. Higgins catching a contested catch when he goes above the rim is like the Ken Griffey Jr. of contested catches. It looks beautiful. Like there's something that not very many other players in the NFL, not none, but maybe Junior is a bit of a lofty comparison there because like DeAndre Hopkins is in this realm as well. Odell Beckham Jr. in his prime, those kinds of players are incredible when making plays on the ball as well. But point is, Germaine Burton does it consistently and has shown that ability both in college and in this preseason so far. And finding a way to get him on the field would benefit the team. I agree with you there. I wonder where the disconnect is. I wonder if it's truly that he just doesn't know the playbook enough, if it's a maturity thing, if it's a trust thing, like he's doing the little things wrong and that's rubbing the coaches the wrong way, or even if it's Joe Burrow, where Joe Burrow is just like, you're not there yet. And he's not earned that from the quarterback yet. I wonder where that true choke point is that he needs to get over. You know what I mean?
Let's just pretend that the sleeping thing is a thing, right? But he's also making plays. We've seen him make plays. Let's combine that with Zach Taylor on the sideline of that first preseason game to Jamar saying we've created a monster, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're keeping him as the sixth receiver for now to harden him up, toughen him up, make him earn it, whatever. Like he's going through his boot camp, right? He gets the number 81, not number 3, even though he had never worn 81 in his life. I don't know why that's the case, but you know what I mean? Like you tie all this stuff together to try to get the most out of him. Again, speculation. It's a podcast. I'm not reporting it, but it kind of goes together. Like you can kind of connect the dots.
Yeah.
And so hopefully it works because it's easy to see the talent. I mean, it oozes. And for whatever reason, whatever it is, maybe it's just simply we don't want to give this guy one of the car keys to our offense yet when he's not doing all of the little things that we want him to do. And if that's the case, then damn it, Jermaine, do all the little things, right? And if it's other things, if it's learning the playbook, and it probably is, rookies do that. Charlie was doing that last year. Andre had to go through that last year. So that's part of it. And so I think worst case though, the Bengals clearly have a guy who can win outside, win deep downfield. And that's something that they should be able to use at some point this year, hopefully sooner rather than later, because that's another dynamic defenses would have to plan for.
And the thing that stands out to me about this is they start with a soft schedule. We've talked about this a ton. It would be great to get him on the field in one of those first 4 games. Maybe it's not against Kansas City, but if you have a game where there's a package you can get together for him and help build the confidence up, that'd be awesome. But he has to hold up his end of the bargain there. It seems to be the consistent theme of doing the little things. This coaching staff all the time talks about doing things the right way. It is something that is important to them, the way you carry yourself as a pro, and especially so for rookies. On the other hand, I really don't know what to make of this tight end room right now. It seems like Tanner Hudson is a shoo-in for the team. He played 6 snaps tonight, all of those early. And then we saw a good amount of Eric All with 21 snaps.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tanner McLaughlin at 17. I mean, Cam Grandy had 17 snaps. Those tight ends with the same amount of snaps, Grandy on the field for his blocking ability, I think a little bit. Didn't see a whole lot from McLaughlin as a receiver tonight. Didn't see him early. Didn't see them have much design for him. At least it appeared. And based on his preseason and the guys he's been working with in practice and all these things, it's getting a little tough to make an ironclad case for Tanner McLaughlin making the roster. It might be tough to make much of a case at all based on what you've seen, outside of the fact that the Bengals keep their 6th-round picks historically, and he's probably the most athletic tight end with the ball in his hands, the ability to move with the football in his hands.
Yeah, I think, and I had him on my 53-man coming into this week. I did. I thought that they would probably keep 5. You could easily see the future, all of those things. But if we were basing this on camp, let's combine camp and preseason. Do you think that Tanner McLaughlin is a must keep, Jake, based on what you saw at camp and what you've seen this preseason? Because the answer for me is no.
Yeah, I mean, when you frame it that way, the answer is no. The case I would make is that it's worth trying to protect him from that first wave of waivers and trying to make sure you can keep a hold of him in development, because he does have an athletic skill set at tight end that you don't really have, even though I'm bullish on Eric All. I think Tanner McLaughlin is more athletic, a smoother mover. And so having the opportunity to develop that at a position where development is a real thing that takes time, that would be the argument you would make to keep him.
For sure. And let's continue this because I have a quick response to it. I think we're pretty close there. And then we have some fallers, some other reaction, certainly, that we have to get to coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. If you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. And right now you can post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, let's get to just my quick response on Tanner McLaughlin, because I agree with you. And I think a lot of fans feel the same way. They say, oh, well, 30-year-old Tanner Hudson is the same as Tanner McLaughlin, the rookie that you just drafted. And I disagree. I think the Bengals clearly trust Hudson much more. There's one. Yeah. But to your point, the future of the tight end room could easily be next year. Easily. In an ideal world, honestly. Eric All as your starter, Drew Sample as your blocker, Tanner McLaughlin as your kind of your weapon that isn't the do-it-all like Eric All, but he's your pass-catching Mike Gesicki type. And then you have Sample, who's your blocker, and then Eric All, who's the mixture of both. Like, you could easily see the path to that. Mm-hmm. And so is that why you don't play him much in the preseason? You're trying to sneak him by. You're trying to make it work. I don't know. But I think it's interesting. And when you talk about keeping 5 tight ends, honestly, I think back to the draft often. I wonder if Eric All just healed much faster than they realized, or they just thought Tanner McLaughlin was a must-take at where he was. But if you feel that way and you've seen what you needed to see from him, and maybe you haven't, but then I'm on your side. Don't expose him. Like, if you think he's a big part of your future, don't expose him to free agency here where he can just get claimed and you give him away. And I wonder. So we'll see. It's an interesting dilemma. It's one that I'll be thinking about for a few days here ahead of cutdown day. Can we move to one other rookie that was drafted just after Tanner McLaughlin? Is Dejon Anthony still a lock for this roster?
I am inclined to say yes, but it does feel, to your point, feel a little bit less certain than it did before. Jordan Battle obviously is a lock. We believe Tyson Anderson is a lock because of his special teams ability. And he also played a good amount on defense tonight. And then, do they need a fifth safety? Dejon Anthony has impressed him throughout camp. He's had packages where he's worked in with the ones throughout camp. So for all of those reasons, the majority of the preseason and training camp would still lead me to believe he's on the roster. But then we start to ask these questions of, well, do they keep 5 tight ends? Do they keep 5 safeties? Do they need an extra body on the defensive interior if McKinley Jackson isn't going to be ready right away? What do they do with Miles Murphy in terms of the IR and keeping an extra body or finding an extra body on the edge or generally on the defensive line? What about linebacker where Joe Bacci is banged up? And we think Mumajong Meta is probably the leader there, even after tonight. How many are they keeping there? And then maybe they'd want to keep Jalen Davis around after Zach Taylor has praised him so highly in the past. So it's not just that one player, but when we're talking about Tanner McLaughlin, it's a similar kind of conversation around Dejon Anthony, where you think about all these other dominoes that would have to fall to make the roster math work out.
Let me ask you this, and it isn't as simple as picking one, of course, but I'm going to make you do it because why not? Dejon Anthony or Tanner McLaughlin?
If you're making me pick,
you have to pick.
Jake is picking, not what I think the Bengals would do. I would pick Tanner McLaughlin.
Okay.
Personally, I think the Bengals would not. I think that we are not aligned there. I think that the Bengals really like Dejon Anthony, but I feel like when you have Jordan Battle and Tyson Anderson as your safety depth, that is solid safety depth. I know that Tyson Anderson has never made it through a season. Honestly, both of these guys might clear waivers. Maybe it'll be fine. I think that intuitively to me, and this is probably just my bias talking, I think there's a higher chance Tanner McLaughlin will be claimed.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to think about it more. I always lean weapons, right? And I'm as bullish on Tyson Anderson as anyone. And so I could Anthony clear? Maybe he could. I think one guy that would clear waivers if he was a rookie or now or certainly going to be looking for a job elsewhere is Jackson Carman. What are they? What's that? It's irony, I would imagine, right? Yeah, it's irony. The fact that Jackson Carman doesn't get in until the fourth quarter on the same night that Creed Humphrey agrees to a record-setting deal. Creed Humphrey, the guy that the Bengals could have just taken, sat in their lap, taken at 46th overall in the 2021 draft. Just crazy.
Your second round pick.
I hate
from what year was it? 2021. Jackson
21.
Carman got as many snaps tonight as your college free agent guard Eric Miller from 2024 and your college free agent tackle from 2022. I think he joined the Bengals last year. I can't remember. Devin Cochran. Those guys all played the same amount of snaps. 14. They all played at the end of the game.
That's the worst pick of the Joe Burrow era by like a mile.
It feels that way, yeah.
I mean, by like forever.
It's a second round pick that you got literally nothing from. You set a second round pick on fire. And we thought they did at the time of the pick. Let's hope that somebody needs a fire right now and is willing to trade something of value for a little bit of heat. Is there a football team in Alaska? Is it even cold in Alaska in August? Maybe it's too early.
You live in Canada. Hey, there is football in Canada. I don't know if it's going to work for Jackson.
I hope they can get something for him. I do not think that is a thing that's going to happen. That is certainly wishful thinking. Jackson Kirkland, the other Jackson in the room, who has been apparently and obviously favored since, but like probably the Jackson Carman false start when he got into that one drive in training camp, and then they pulled him immediately and put Cody Ford in at right tackle. Maybe even before that, Jackson Kirkland is a guy that they like for his approach to the game. But I still think that the right waiver claim should appeal to them on the offensive line. Cody Ford is not a tackle. I know Leatu Latu is awesome and he's a technician and he's probably got a really bright future ahead of himself as a pass rusher, but
we're not talking even about your back. We're talking about your fourth guy.
I know. And he's a fine, swing backup and all that stuff. But Nate Gilliam's been better in the preseason than Cody Ford has.
I wonder about Gilliam. See, this is the Tanner McLaughlin debate. Like, maybe you keep Nate Gilliam and you have 10 linemen.
I think it's really hard to justify the 10th lineman this year. But they've done it in the past. So
Nate Gilliam's been solid, man.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
I think he has been. And yeah.
I think it comes down to like Jalen Davis, Dejon Anthony, Tanner McLaughlin. Because for a long time, I've been on 5 corners thinking that Josh Newton was enough insurance for them to feel like they could go to 5 there and have, DJ Turner and Josh Newton who can play multiple spots. But maybe they just want to keep Jalen Davis. They've always liked him.
Yeah. We'll see. I think they'll be looking waivers wise, trade wise. Like we've already seen some trades across the league. Like, Jackson is obviously available. It's not making the team. There'll be some other guys. What'd you think about them featuring Travion Williams so much just to get him some run?
I was surprised to see him so late in the game.
Yeah.
I think I DM'd you. Travion's still in the game in the fourth quarter.
Why risk it? You have 0 depth at running back. 0.
I mean, we've talked about this. I think that if the right running back is available, I think they're happy to go with 3, and we know who 2 of them are. And if it needs to be Travion as a third, I think they're comfortable with him. I think they like him, but I think they could be swayed as well. That's a feeling. The one other thing that we should probably mention before we get out of here, are there others from the offense defense that you want to hit before we talk Rico real quick?
Oh, no, let's talk Rico.
So inconsistent.
Mhm.
Maybe is a punter by default.
Hmm.
Do not have a feel for Brad Robbins' health and his return to action. Would not be surprised if they made a waiver claim on a punter either.
Yeah,
Depends on what's going on with Brad.
I think that's it. I mean, all offseason, I've said Brad was the favorite. Maintain it. He's hurt now. It's tough. It's cloudy. I don't know. I've tried to dig. Obviously, it's my job. I don't think Brad's out for the year. Okay. But I don't know if he's back week 1 either. And so you need a punter week 1. And so as of now, I think you're right. By default, it's Ryan Rico, but you're certainly not feeling great about it. And you're keeping your eye out, much like you did when you had a punter here and then you bring in Ryan Rico. You're going to keep your eye out. I think the good news is he has the talent. You just got to get him more consistent. At the same time, the games are here now. It's on April 23rd. It's August 23rd. So that's we'll see. Hopefully they can get Brad healthy, because I thought Brad was impressive and I thought he was going to have a pretty good season.
A lot of fans would prefer, judging from my Twitter timeline tonight, the inconsistency of Rico to Robbins, even after the
doesn't
preseason.
make any sense. But okay.
I think it'll be really interesting to see how they manage this cut down. We will talk about the questions they face with the cut down looming. That is going to be on Tuesday. So we'll be back on Sunday evening with another show. Miles Murphy, the injury question there. Joe Bocci, the injury question there. How they're feeling about Amarius Mims' recovery. There are a lot of injuries in addition to Brad Robbins there that are going to make some of these roster cuts challenging. And that doesn't even mention McKinley Jackson not having a healthy nose tackle potentially on the team at all. These are questions the Bengals will face that we will grapple with and discuss over the next couple of episodes here on Locked On Bengals until that cut down occurs on Tuesday. Until then, we're through the preseason. Thanks for listening. And until next time, hoo day and have a good one.